Welcome to Winning, the podcast that gets under the skin of high performance across law, business, sport, and the arts. I'm Ian Rosenblatt, founder of Rosenblatt Law. I'm a music lover and entrepreneur, and I'm your host. In each episode, we sit down with extraordinary individuals who've shaped industries, inspired teams, and redefined what it means to win. Today's guest is Dr. Ben Rosenblatt, elite performance coach, founder of 292 Performance, and the former lead men's physical performance coach at the England Football Association. With over 1,000 athletes coached, including Premier League footballers, elite military personnel, and more than 200 world and Olympic medalists, Ben brings a rare blend of scientific rigor and real-world insight into what it truly takes to win. His philosophies on resilience, preparation, and mindset are grounded in decades of elite coaching. He offers a unique perspective on the intersection of physical and psychological performance. And I'm proud to say he's also my son. Welcome to Winning. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So let's start. Do you think that, or have you ever come across people who are not necessarily in your professional career, but also when you were playing amateur sport, who were not naturally gifted, but very, very enthusiastic? Do you think that enthusiasm without natural gift can actually turn somebody into a competitor?
Yes, is the long and short of it. I think that you need to find a sport, and I think this more broadly, you need to find something that you're able to do which you have an instinct for, or something that you are naturally have a predisposition for. You know, I could sprint every day for the rest of my life, or, you know, from a very young age, and never win the Olympics due to my genetics. Mm-hmm. No offense, but yeah.
Offensive?
Yeah. But I can definitely become faster. I can definitely improve and get better. And if I'm able to work out what it is that I'm really good at and what do I enjoy doing, what do I want to have a desire to improve in, then I could probably find something which fits. And I think that's what we find across a whole bunch of different domains.
And do you think that obviously there are sports people who have exceptional physical attributes for the sport they're playing?
Yeah.
But do you think that, I'm not talking right now, but we will come on to mental preparation. But do you think that with all the physicality, natural or otherwise, you still need to have a certain attitude, way of thinking, dare I say, intelligence?
You know, your IQ is really dependent on the situations that you're trying to deploy it in, right? So the more skilled you are in a certain context or environment, I think there's so much of that is due to training and exposure as well. So we're working with some really elite teams at the moment, and the difference between them consistently being silver medalists in their major competitions and trying to win gold is the decisions that they're making and how they're executing their skills under really extreme levels of fatigue and pressure. And we're putting in a program which helps them change that.
Right.
So, you know, I think all these things contribute, but the thing I most fundamentally believe in is that you can create environments, training structures, ways of working that allow people to adapt and become better to the really, really specific demands that we want them to thrive within.
Mm-hmm. Obviously, mental preparation is key. But do you think that there are sports people, elite athletes in whatever game they're playing, who just simply can play the game, but just can't get or understand the refinement that's required to be a winner?
Yeah.
And so to analogize in the world I'm in, I'm obviously, in my career, I do and I have spent time with extremely clever people, people who have got first-class degrees, they're excellent intellectually, but put them in a practical situation.
Yeah.
They just don't understand how to join the dots.
Yeah, you see that all the time. You see guys in boxing gyms who are great, they're great boxers in the gym, but they can't do it under the lights. You see it in football. You see it in all sports, is that you have some people who are phenomenal in training, but whenever the pressure of competition, you know, they step towards that, they crumble. They can't necessarily step or raise their level to what's being expected of them.
And can you overcome that?
Yeah, I think you can. But the other one you often see, or I've had the privilege to see, is that, or not, is in the really, really elite environments, you see people, you know, whether that be, you know, England football team is a nice example, that players come in and they've got the capability to be able to step in and train with the team. They might get a couple of caps. They might even do one tournament. But from a mental perspective, in terms of can they go again, and can they become dominant in their sport? So I think there's some real similar traits and characteristics there of people who are, that they kind of find their level. But then what you need to do is, I was thinking about this when I was preparing for this actually, is it the fact that they don't have an ego, like such a strong sense of self, and they're willing to just do whatever it takes to learn and to adapt and get better and better and better? Or is it they've got such a strong desire to win, because they've got such a strong sense of self and such a strong ego that they're willing to listen to everyone and do whatever it takes to take the next step forward?
Well, that's interesting, because two things on the subject of ego.
Yeah.
And you mentioned England. You were the lead physical performance coach for the men's team, weren't
Yes.
you? For
7 years.
7 years, under Gareth Southgate.
Yeah.
But when you go into an England camp,
Mm-hmm.
you are presumably confronted with, you've got star players. They're all stars, or else they wouldn't be there. So they are stars within the clubs
Yeah.
where they play, where they do their daily work and their weekly work. And then you get into a camp and they go from being top dog or one of 3 or 4 top dogs in the team they're in, to being a first amongst equals, for want of another way of putting it. 2 questions. How does that work in terms of physical and mental preparation, and also behavior? Does their behavior alter? Not asking for any scoops, no names need to be mentioned, but it's an interesting thought for me anyway.
The second one is probably it may be the more interesting one to answer, because it is, as a coach, I was taught at a young, when I started my coaching career, that there was a fantastic guy called Dave Redding. He said to me that the players' match day is really obvious. It's their match day, but what's your match day and how are you preparing for it? And I think this is a thing that really translates from sport into a whole host of different domains, which is, what is your match day? What is the thing that you're really preparing for? My match day, when I get asked a lot, what's the most, the memory that sticks with the most from working with England, a lot of people expect me to say this game, that game, which do, but the things that really stick with me are watching a team who, the team didn't do any strength training, they didn't warm up properly, they didn't go through these things which are fundamental athletic behaviours. And over a period of 7 years, watching that change and then do that, engaging that completely independently and changing the culture of the national team. And the reason I go through that story is that as a coach, your game day is the moment when you're delivering to the players. So you have to put as much preparation into the sessions that you're delivering, the interactions that you're going to have with them, and you have to be as deliberate of that as you expect the players to be, or when they have to remember what to do in a set piece, or how they're preparing to mark somebody. So how do you manage and work with these huge characters who are inevitably going to test you? First of all, we have to believe that you can help them. You have to believe that there's something that you have that you can offer them and give them. Third, you have to, I think secondly, you have to listen to them. You have to be really, and watch their behavior and listen to them and see what it is that's really important to them. And then the most important thing is try and align the two and paint a really clear picture or a story about how the thing that's really important to them is going to change as a consequence of what it is that you can offer them. And, stuff like adapting to each sport, each team has got its own tribe. So, is this an environment that everyone's laughing and joking and being part of that? This is one that's really respectful? There's really a lot of clicks in it, where, being able to stop back and watch and work out really, really quickly how you're going to interact with that environment to be effective.
But of course, in the England setup, or indeed, I guess, in any football club setup, there are actually 2 teams, 2 squads. The squad number 1 is the players.
Yeah.
Squad number 2 is the team that you're part of.
Yeah.
Which is the machine that gets it all to work. So we'll talk obviously more about how athletes prepare and what it takes to be a winning athlete. But the backroom squad, put it that way, the engine, presumably, reporting in ultimately to the supreme commander, who is the manager. There could be conflict. How do you resolve that or deal with that?
Well, look, again, that's not just in football, that's in across all sports, that every sport and every team has got their own support team that goes alongside it. And, the England men's senior team was a large one. And then you work in other ones, which is, just you and the head coach or you and the coach. And one of the things that I'm doing a lot within my company now is going into the audits of how those teams are functioning to support the ambitions of the organisation, the players and the coaches. One of the things we find the most is what you want is people who've got really diverse ways of thinking. You want people who've got diverse skills, and you want people who've got really diverse experiences, because within that you have a high capability to solve the different types of problems that come in. I think the next thing you want is really well established systems and ways of working. The way I've likened it to is when I go home and I'm holding onto my keys. There's a place I put my keys, and every time that I don't put them there, I then need to spend 3 hours looking around the house when I leave and it's the same thing. Like every time you're having a team meeting, if there's not a repeatable structure, if there's not repeatable, all the fundamentals and basics of how a team should function, if they're not in place, then every single time you're having an opinion about how a player should rehabilitate or how the team should prepare on this particular day, you're always having to work back from first principles, which are inevitably going to start in all these diverse places. And that's usually where conflict comes from. So having the right people in, having really effective systems and ways of making decisions. The other thing is making those decisions before the pressure comes, or having a decision-making system mapped out or established before the pressure comes. And that's like kind of scenario planning, which I'm sure goes on in your world here, which is if player X's hamstring tightens up in the session, then we will do Y, and you're going to be responsible for that. I'm going to be responsible for that. So rather than wait until the crisis to happen, which is inevitably going to be the point of conflict, you get ahead of it and you start, I call it crystal balling. So start looking into your crystal ball. What do you think is going to happen? Where do you think things are going to go wrong? And how are we as a team going to manage that? So you kind of deal with the conflict before it happens mostly.
And presumably what underpins all that is there has to be, I know this is a slightly kind of cheesy word, but respect.
Yeah.
You have to respect your colleagues, presumably. And for that to be an effective back office.
Yeah, absolutely.
You need to have people who have an open mind and willing to listen to other people, which I guess is not very easy.
No, it's really difficult. And particularly when in some of the sports which have got higher visibility, public visibility, there's people in the backroom staff who will then associate themselves with that level of success as well, or that level of visibility, and therefore their ego becomes really, really high, and they think they're the reason, or the particular reason why the team, the individual is having that type of success. I think fundamentally it comes down to recruitment, which is making sure you have the right people with the right values for this organisation and for this organisation. But if you don't have those in place, that becomes really, really tricky.
Sure.
And I've worked in several teams where that's the case. Who knows? Maybe people have thought that about me as well. But the point is that's when the crisis points happen, and those are the things which are really tricky to manage.
The extent to which people might have thought the same thing about you is easily tested.
Yeah.
Where are they now?
Potentially, yes.
You're the winner, aren't you?
I always have this debate with my wife, actually. As a coach, you don't win the medals. So I've never won anything. But I take an enormous amount of pride and value in helping other people win and helping athletes, coaches win big. The teams I've been involved with, when they've had a level of success, have changed the way the country feels. They've been huge, enormous talking points within British culture and society. I'm interested in how can we help British sporting teams or teams around the world, individuals, do that again and again and again.
Well, you're being very modest, because I was watching the television the night that Team GB women's hockey won the gold.
Yeah.
And you were working for Team GB women's hockey at that point. And in the post-game interviews, somebody that they interviewed, I can't remember who, said they would never have won the match and the gold medal without Dr. Ben Rosenblatt.
Yes.
And it's a big loss that he's going to the England football team. That's what they said.
Yeah.
So, you did win that medal, as far as some people are concerned.
Look, but I think as a team, you're always part of it. And I'm not going to downplay the role that we play in any yeah, anyway, but it's also, I guess the point is that as someone who I've got a strong desire to win, but I also know what motivates me. I also know the thing that's really, really important to me, and it's not. It's, you know, that it's very kind that people will go and say that, but that's not the reason why I will try and do anything possible to help them win.
Yes. Okay, let's just get into some specifics about mindset, mental preparation. What does that look like for an elite performer? Do they, do people meditate? Do they stand on their head? Do they chant? I mean, is there anything that you can pinpoint?
I've seen it all.
You've seen it, I'm sure.
I've seen it all. I've seen everything from a boxer I was recently working with, the changing room that he had in before his fight, which was a huge British fight, was the busiest changing room I've ever seen in my career. There must have been, over 60 people in it. I think 50 that I'd never seen before, and I'd been in every day of the camp. And I remember thinking, and I said to the coach, we need to shut the doors. We need to stop this. We need to get this out. And it was pandemonium going on outside. There were fights kicking. It was all, like, it was completely nuts. And he said, no, don't. This is what he needs. And what I saw was this guy in front of me with all the chaos and the circus raise up and come alive. And that's what he needed to be able to prepare himself. Mm-hmm. Now I take myself to another player or another athlete that I've worked with, and if you make eye contact with them before the fight or before the competition, that they're going to throttle you. So what I've seen is a whole host of different ways of preparing themselves. The thing that I've seen for people who do it really, really well is that they've got very, very high levels of self-awareness, as in they know what they need. Mm-hmm. They know how they need to feel. Mm-hmm. And it's part of your role as a coach is to help them understand what these rituals and habits are. And it's something I'd encourage, like I say, the moments before I'm having to have a really big conversation with a challenging athlete or a really big, high profile, big ego person, I'm spending time preparing it. I'm thinking about how I want my body language to be. I'm thinking about how I want my demeanor to be. I'm thinking about how I want my mind to be, which is calm and clear. And I want a level of kind of excitement and snappiness in my body as well. So as a performer myself and as the people that I coach, what you want them to have is that level of self-awareness and make sure the habits and routines that they have before they compete or before they train reflect the thing that they want to feel like and how they want to behave.
Do you think that self-awareness is a standout feature across, if you would try to pick the top 6 characteristics of a winner in your world? Self-awareness would be within that.
Mission critical, yeah.
Mission critical.
Absolutely.
Okay. Is that something you can teach, or is that something that people either have it or they don't have it?
Yeah, I think it can be taught. You can be made aware of it. You can absolutely, but some people will naturally, with high EQ, will have much greater levels of self-awareness than others. But if you haven't got it, it's your role as a coach, or if you're a leader in the world of business, then it's your responsibility to help someone who has low self-awareness gain it pretty quickly as well.
Well, in my world, and this is a sweeping generalization, low self-awareness or no self-awareness normally correlates to extreme arrogance.
Yeah.
People who think they're king or queens of the world, they can do anything and everything.
Yeah.
Is that the same in your game?
So in order to be competitive and to win, you need to have a strong belief that you're up for the fight and you can do it, that you can win, and you know exactly how you're going to do it, and you'll back yourself to do it in any situation or circumstance. I don't think that's arrogance. I think arrogance is the point where you think you're like that and everyone else is crap. And that's fine, but when you come up against someone who's not crap, you get found out really, really quickly. So I think there's that beautiful blend of having extreme self-belief, high levels of self-awareness, and then we spoke earlier about, is it ego or lack of ego that allows you to go, I want to win so badly that I'm willing to destroy and break everything that I've already done to find another way of doing it. Mm-hmm. Because if you've just got that level of arrogance, which is, call it lack of self-awareness, all that happens is you're going to come up against someone better than you, and then the house comes falling down.
And when you are back to the men's England squad, when they're all together on camp, do you have? Is there a "I'm the biggest bear in the room" syndrome with anybody, or do they generally settle into we're all in it together?
bit of both, really. Depends on who's been picked, who hasn't been picked. And
Okay.
I think that, but I think there's always a sense of I'm the biggest bear in the room, and it's also within a team. If you need to work out, if you're coaching or leading a team, you need to work out who that person is and how to work with them to make sure you can bring the rest of the team along with them, because that stuff does exist. But I think the best teams I work with are ones that leverage that, they know that, but they also can bring out those leadership characteristics and traits of everybody else within the team as well. I'm working with a team at the moment where it's absolutely the best I've ever seen, where there's a high level of just everyone is completely and utterly accepted because they're doing it. There's respect, what we brought up earlier, because their skill level is also high. There's respect because of how hard they're working, and then there's a consequence. Everyone's opinion is valid because everyone's proved to each other that they can cut it.
Do you think there's anything that you could pinpoint that separates good from great?
I think anyone can get good. I think anyone can become good at anything, really. I think to become great and to become dominant, you have to do that thing where you're so competitive that you are willing to change. I think Tiger Woods is like the most obvious example in sport where, he was willing to change his swing. As a business owner, are you that competitive that you're willing to do something completely different to what's got you so far successful, which is huge amounts of risk on your ego, on your
trust.
Yeah, the whole lot. So I think that the thing that separates good to great is their willingness to be able to look at things against first principles and then make changes where it's needed. I think the other thing about being great is it's actually really boring. Like most athletes who are great have got an exceptionally boring life.
Being prepared to be bored, you mean?
Yeah.
They are, in other words, their focus is entirely on their job, their mission.
Absolutely. And the life of an athlete and it's not just like day on day. It sounds like okay, you'll wake up every morning, probably feel really sore, stiff and tired. You're then going to go through a rigorous variety of exercises that you need to do to get your body in the right space to train. You then train where you're competing with other people who might want your spot or who think they can do better than you. So you're right up against it. You then have to go through another series of exercises and activities across the entire day to just keep on making yourself better, where you're continually being exposed. There's no nudge in your diet. Your diet has to be absolutely bang on. You go to sleep earlier than everyone else, and you maybe don't do the things with your family that you should be doing. And then you do it every day, and you do it every day for 10, 15, 20 years. That's the difference between, I think most people could do that for a week, a month, maybe best part of a year or two. But I don't think everyone can do that for 20 years. So the difference between good and great is...
Well, I tell you who can do that for 20 years, which is maybe a surprising comparator, is the world of opera.
Yeah.
Because opera singers who are internationally famous or have international careers, and you wouldn't have that unless you were an elite singer, they have very, very boring and very really lonely lives because they're traveling around the world to go from one opera house to another. And every time they land in a new country, they're staying in a small apartment or an Airbnb or gigs or whatever. And everything is focused just on appearing and doing their best on that stage on the night. And then they go back and make beans on toast and go to sleep, and then sleep as long as they can to rest before they get on and do it again a couple of days later.
Absolutely.
So it's not unique to your world, but there is a difference really, and I think probably applies.
Yeah.
Is that, if you are an opera singer, you can have a very good 5 or 10 year career. If you want to smoke, party, go out, enjoy yourself like a normal person.
Yeah.
But then your career's over. If you want longevity and to be at the top of your game, that's what you have to do. Apart from, obviously, sporting people, I know that you have coached people who are in the movie business, people who are in industry, and also people in the armed forces.
Yes.
So just talk about the armed forces, if we may, just for a minute. So is there a distinction in the mindset, behavior, appetite, desire of a pilot in the RAF, a combat soldier,
Mm-hmm.
and tennis player or a boxer or a football player.
The thing that I've noticed really, really separates people is this piece around concordance. Like there's something, coming back to what we spoke about at the start, there's something in them which resonates really, really highly with the mission that they're, the thing they do every single day. It gets them and they get it. It's a full connection piece. And I think that allows them to do the stuff which is really, really boring and really, really repetitive, to enable them to do the stuff which is really, really fun, which is, game day, opening night, filming, the mission that they get placed on.
Sure.
And I think it is the ability to, like, again, they've got a strong enough connection with what it is that they're trying to, what it is they believe in, the thing that they really, really feel connection to. And then the ability just to grunt out and gut out the insane levels of critique, feedback. The other thing that you probably should mention as well is the amount of criticism and critical. We call it
Well, I was going to, yeah, absolutely.
but actually,
I call it feedback.
Yeah, but
What are the great euphemisms?
I know, but it's a lot of these guys within elite sport, all these different elite environments, are getting highly critical information about their performance from a wide variety of sources on a moment by moment basis.
Well, I was going to come on to that later. We all want to talk about resilience.
I'm not talking about the obvious one of people being shouted at in the stands. I'm talking about, in those other examples that we've just given there, someone from their peer who is someone they highly respect saying that wasn't good enough, or do it like that, or if you don't raise to this standard, you're going to be out. And what I've noticed in these really, really elite teams is that they give each other exceptionally clear, direct feedback immediately when things aren't up to scratch, and it is received in a way that goes, thank you, I'm going to make that better.
Well, that's presumably partly because it's coming from somebody that is in the same position as them and is at their level.
Yeah.
Rather than somebody just shouting abuse from the stand.
Yeah, correct. But that is true. But equally, there are only those types of people who are operating at that level can receive it in that way as well. Mm-hmm. Because most people, and that is in sport, whether it's in the military or entertainment or business, when they get told what you're doing isn't up to scratch, it's seen as a personal attack. Yeah, as a consequence, it's either devastating for the individual, it's a challenge for the team, and you don't get any closer to winning. So we did a whole big piece of work with GB Hockey about not just how to give people feedback, but how it's received and how it's taken on. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something that can be learnt from those worlds in the world of business, I think. And yeah, I think that's a huge thing that can be learnt from those worlds.
To what extent do you think that identity is important in winning or in performance? By that, I mean in every sort of across the spectrum of identity, whether it's religious, ethnic, patriotism, to what extent that, I mean, obviously in the armed forces, one assumes that patriotism is kind of a given.
Yeah.
But to what extent have you found that those issues or others are important to people?
So there's a fantastic book called Belonging by Owen Eastwood. And he was the person who was the sort of cultural architect he was a lawyer by trade, actually. Okay. He was the cultural architect of the All Blacks, as an example. And one of the things that he does with each team that he's worked with is understand the story that sits behind why that team is there. And it's based on a Maori principle called whakapapa. And which is which is this whole concept of where you are right, where you are right now is a consequence of everything that's come before you, and then you are then laying the ground or the path for the people that are ahead of you. So he did a great piece of work with us with England, which was about the identity of what it was to be a part of the Three Lions, what the national identity of the team was, where it sat in the eyes of the nation, in the eyes of the people who've played for us. So my point around all this is that it's identity is, I guess, like the discipline thing is like, I'm going to follow this for as long as I can bear it. Mm-hmm. But identity is the reason why you do something. There's an amazing bit of research by Becky and Ryan, which is around self-determination theory. People talk about motivation a lot, and motivational climate. Essentially, what they found was that if you want people to commit to someone, to have a level of motivation, they have to have a strong sense of connection which is the identity piece. What I'm doing now is really important to who I am and where I belong. They have to have a level of autonomy in the decisions that they're making. They have to make a choice, and they have to see success. They have to see some level of feedback that this is going in the right direction. So that's mastery. It's called mastery. So I think within that frame, if you want people, or if you're a coach or you're a leader and you want your team to engage in a series of behaviors, actions, and do it for a long, long period of time, and do it the way that everyone wants it to be done as well, them having a strong sense of identity, or that being connected with who they are, a strong sense of connection between the identity of the team, the identity of themselves, is the most important piece.
Have you coached anybody that has really surprised you with their transformation?
Yeah, I can actually. Someone from business actually. It's a business leader we're working with, and by far and away the most consistent, the person who's trained most consistently above every other athlete.
Oh, really?
Yeah, absolutely. And the changes he's made has been absolutely transformational.
Really?
Yeah, and I think that there's that piece around identity, and then his consistency has been remarkable.
He's presumably an elite performer in his own field.
He knows correct. He is.
So he adapts to whatever environment he's in, and then makes sure that he's the best at it that he can be.
I think these traits and characteristics are highly adaptable to different environments.
Right.
The only thing that you're lacking is the technical skills within the different domains.
And somebody like him then just makes sure they understand or learn the requisite skills.
Willing to learn.
To do whatever it is his next challenge is.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Right. It's kind of follows on from that, and maybe you've already answered the question, but what could anybody, a lawyer, an artist, a business person, learn from an Olympic athlete about performance?
It's starting. You've always got to start with the end in mind. What is it that is important and valuable to you? Uh-huh. What is it that you're trying to achieve across whatever domain it might well be? I think that the next thing is identifying what, and this is the performance process we go through with every athlete. What is it you're trying to achieve? What are the things that are stopping you doing that? What's easiest to change right now? And then fundamentally, how can we keep you consistent to make sure everything you're doing is aligned towards that, and get rid of everything else? And that's the kind of performance. It's a performance planning mindset. And I think that's the thing that's most easy to deploy into a whole host of different situations.
Sure.
And then from the individual, if the question to ask is, when's your game day? What are the things that you're preparing for? And then that level of self-awareness to know that this is what is it that you need to do to perform at your best in those scenarios, and then work through that same process. What's getting in your way? What do you need to change to do it? What's easiest to change? And how are you going to be consistent and know that you've achieved it or not?
The most powerful daily habits that you have seen top performers indulge in, that in their mind, is to themselves anyway, is important.
The daily habits piece, it comes back to a couple of other conversations we've had. So one of them is around the ability to do a daily habit every day for 20 years. That's the hard bit, right? Things like wellness daily habits are really popular at the moment, like meditating, maybe taking an ice bath or a cold shower.
Do people do that?
Yeah, absolutely. They do all this everything you can think of is being done. The most important thing as a coach, or the most important thing is, I guess as a leader as well, is making sure that the things that they're doing is one, aligned with their values and that sense of belonging, identity piece. But if they believe that putting their left sock on before their right is really important, and they should do it. But the other thing is making sure that the other habits they have in place are completely aligned with the things that they're trying to achieve, whether that be diet, nutrition, lifestyle, physical preparation. I guess that the wellness, like the habits of performance, are like really, really varied. Everything you can think of is being done. Okay. The most important thing is that there's alignment.
Do you see a difference between discipline and motivation in the way you coach people, or the way people respond to your coaching?
So the thing that I try to do the most is to identify those three pieces we spoke about earlier, which is connection, autonomy, and mastery. So if I want someone to, I don't view it through the lens of, and I think it's really, really easy to, as a coach or someone, to be able to say, you're just not motivated enough, or you're just not disciplined enough. The most fundamental question is, have you created an environment or conditions that allow them to do the thing they need to do repeatedly.
Mm-hmm.
So the first question is, has that athlete or has that individual got a sense of connection between what it is they've got to do right now and the thing that they're trying to achieve?
Mm-hmm.
And if there is a barrier or lack of understanding or a lack of connection or feeling there, then you can't start. Then it is going to be just based on who's got the biggest grunt and willpower just to do something. The next one is on autonomy. Have they made a decision? Have they had some level of choice within that? And the third one is mastery. Do they feel themselves getting better?
Mm-hmm.
So I think if those three conditions are in place, it doesn't matter whether you have discipline or motivation. Fundamentally, that you're going to engage in the behaviours that you think are really optimal.
Is there a difference between, say, coaching somebody in the military to somebody who plays a field sport?
One of the things you find in some of the higher tier units is essentially the jeopardy of not being disciplined or not doing the things is exceptionally higher. So if they don't do the right things, then there's a much more significant threat. So they don't have to be beaten with the stick as much, or they'll get some very, very clean feedback from their mates very, very quickly. Mm-hmm. The sense of threat and jeopardy of them not engaging in those behaviours frequently enough as they get injured, they get hurt, or they get deselected. Mm-hmm. You can tell people that as often as you like, but until they've experienced their first injury, until they get to the point where they're being deselected, then that's usually when the motivation and the behaviours kick in.
Do you think, I mean, particularly in football, but I guess in boxing to a degree, but mainly in football, the amount of money these people get paid, does that impact at all on their appetite or desire to win? I mean, I know it comes a little bit back to what we talked about earlier about being, a top dog in your Premiership team and then being one of lots of dogs in the England camp.
Yeah.
But do you think that there's a corruption of desire or ambition because of the amount of money which is extraordinary? I
haven't seen that. And I think you could probably ask the same question of business leaders who are worth billions. Like, why do they keep on pushing?
Yeah.
Or, executives who are paying millions and millions a year, because they're getting paid more than footballers for a significantly longer period of time.
Sure.
And they're still trying to grow and develop their businesses. So I have seen that, but I don't think it's got anything to do with the money side of things. I think it comes down much more to the things we were discussing earlier, which is, are you good and are you good enough to do what you're doing? Mm-hmm. Which, if you happen to be a Premier League footballer, means you're going to get well paid for it. Then usually what happens is they get an injury, they get deselected, and there's a huge jeopardy or threat associated with underperformance. Mm-hmm. They will either do something really significant to change what's happening there to try and get the next contract or to try and extend their career, or they won't, and they'll very, very quickly fade away. Mm-hmm. Or they have this really strong desire to, whether it is a fear of that loss or that desire to be great, they will keep pushing.
Right. Okay. A slight segue, but AI and technology. So is that impacting your world?
I've actually got a PhD student who's looking at AI, and so looking at using AI to understand how the best sprinters in the UK are running and how we can select exercises which are really, really specific for them. I think AI is, well, first of all, it's going to accelerate and completely change your administrative processes and procedures, which means that we're going to have a lot more ability to spend time speaking with athletes and with coaches and coaching them. So removing administrative burden means that we can spend more time delivering our job. I think we're going to have a much greater insight into the demands and the future demands of sport, which means we can be more effective in the drills and the ways that we coach. Mm-hmm. I think that we're going to understand individuals in ways that we've never understood them before, both from a kind of biological perspective, but probably from a psychological perspective as well, which means we can only become more and more effective. And the reason I say that with so much confidence is that there's always been innovative technology used within sport. Mm-hmm. If you use it in the right way, they can answer some amazing performance questions. And all I see is that AI is going to help us reduce the administrative burden of that and accelerate us to the answers faster.
But you don't think your job is going to become redundant?
I don't think so, because fundamentally, coaching is always going to be about understanding the person and working with the person in front of you. And I think that if I put my own experience onto that, if I really wanted to optimize an aspect or an area of my life or my performance, I can search AI as much as I like, to be able to help me find the answer. But what I really want is someone who's exceptionally well skilled, has a high knowledge base and domain level of expertise, and can leverage tools in ways like AI that I can't, to help me solve that problem that's in front of me.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because I consider myself to be one of those people that you just described.
Yes.
Except in my legal practice, more and more, despite my 40 plus years of experience and my intimate knowledge of certain subjects, and the fact that I'm repeating over and over again and learning from experiences I've had before, more and more clients now are sending me emails which AI has drafted, and saying, "Dear Ian, I'd like you to send the following letter."
Yeah.
And then they attach something that AI has written for them.
Yeah.
Which 19 times out of 20 is utterly wrong.
Yeah.
And obviously written by AI, including citing cases, alleged cases that just don't exist.
Yeah.
The worrying thing is that maybe it's a failing in me and I'm losing my grip. But the concerning thing is that despite me saying, I've done this a million times before, I know what I'm talking about, a lot of people would rather or consider AI as a security blanket. Well, you may know what you're talking about, but AI says blah, 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 blah. So for me, that's becoming more and more a challenge.
I'd imagine in that scenario, though, that if you were to say, well, go on, send that letter, at some point or other, that's going to get back.
Yes.
If you receive that,
except it's harder as a lawyer, because they want you to send the letter that AI has written.
Yeah.
As if, from yourself.
Yeah.
And you don't want to put your name to something that somebody else or some machine has written.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just to end up with, your enemy telling you that you've written a load of crap.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when you're preparing somebody, do you delve at all into their life to find out what it is they like outside sport? Do they like, what sort of music they like? What do they like to do? Is that relevant? Do you do that?
I think that earlier on in my career, like, building a relationship is really, really important. It's also, this is something we speak a lot about with the coaches in my team at the moment, which is building a relationship is foundational to coaching. However, it shouldn't be done at this expense of excellence. So the most important thing, that if you really want the athlete you're working with to get better, again, with some of these really high performing people, they've always got 1,000 people in their ear all the time.
Mm-hmm.
What they're using you for is to get better at the thing that's really important to them. So the most important thing you do there is demonstrate and show credibility that you can solve that problem for them right now when you do it. So what that means is that often I would have started like, hey, have you got family? But I've skipped that now, because what you need to do is help them first. And then the further you get into, some people will want to tell you everything about their history, their past, their family immediately as a way of them building trust with you. And some people, you've got to spend 2 years working with them before you find out they've got a brother.
Sure.
I think as a coach, and I guess as a leader as well, it's really important to work out what it is that each person needs from the relationship they have with you, and that they don't feel pressurized or compelled to share information with them they wouldn't be sharing anyone else. But if it does, and when it does happen, it comes from a place of trust. And then you can help them even more.
Is music important when you are training either yourself, coaching people, or when it's, when you're chilling out?
Music's a huge part of my life.
Yeah, but is it important specifically as a motivator?
Talking back to performance routines, one of the things that I will do in my performance routine is I'll listen to the same song on repeat, and I don't have a song. It's just whatever's with me at that particular day.
The repetition is important.
Loud and repetitive.
Why that?
I don't know. So when we ran a training camp, people didn't then want to end up driving in the car with me to the training ground because I'd turn one song on really loudly for the 10-minute drive. I think what it does is it stops me thinking about anything else.
So you kind of torture yourself?
No, it calms me.
Does it?
Yeah.
Over and over again, the same thing?
Well, I'm not doing it for like 2 weeks. It's usually 5 minutes or so.
Just to wrap up, can you distill all your experience and knowledge into one or two winning edge examples or suggestions
fundamentally there has to be like a really strong competitive desire that's foundational. I think the second thing is that the question is as a coach or a leader or as the performer. So
Yeah, well, both really.
So I think, look, as the performer, it's having like exceptional levels of self-awareness. So knowing yourself very well and being willing to, as a consequence, being willing to change absolutely everything if it requires it to help you win. So you're really willing to do everything to win. And then not getting bored, doing really, really boring things, which you think are going to stack up to give you the best chance of success.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's pretty foundational for a performer. And as a coach, I think it's about, or a leader, I think it's about creating an environment to help you understand the people in front of you to help them do that.
Ben, love you, darling.
Love you, Dad.
I do. I'm so proud.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Whether you're leading on the sports field, in the boardroom, or in public service, Ben's journey is a powerful reminder that winning isn't just about results. It's about resilience, preparation, and purpose. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe, share, and follow wherever you get your podcasts. We'll be back soon with more conversation that goes beyond the headlines and into the heart of high performance. This podcast is brought to you by Rosenblatt Law and produced by the studio at SEC Newgate, UK.